Hello, everyone. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you so much for tuning in. You will first have to forgive me. I am probably going to be loopy this episode as I am just out of the car and back from our weekend trip to Little Rock, Arkansas. So, as you could guess, this entire episode is going to be all about the Little Rock Marathon weekend. What a weekend it was. Oh my goodness, I am exhausted. I am tired, but I also could not be happier with how this entire weekend went down. It was great. And so I want to lead off the show with this. If I do nothing else, if I forget to mention anything else, I don't want to mention this. I want to thank every single one of you who made the Little Rock Marathon Expo and race so memorable. It will certainly go down as one of my all-time favorites. We had such a great time in Little Rock. First off, to all of the Kansas City running team that went down there, I'm not going to try and name everyone because I would ultimately miss something and feel terrible. But to all of my Kansas Cityans who came down to Little Rock for your first marathons, for your first halves, for whatever distance you did, to just be there with everyone else, thank you guys so much. Like honestly, I was super touched the entire weekend. Not that you guys went down for me. I know that's not the case. I am a part of the team, but I couldn't believe all of us came together for such a worthy cause. And when our first time marathoners were finishing the race, how we were all there to cheer and scream for them. It really was such an awesome time and such a great moment. And a big shout out I'm going to name to Sherry and Jamie. You guys, you are now marathon finishers, and how freaking cool is that? I almost got choked up cheering you guys across the finish line. So I am so happy for you guys. My main man Cody, another first time marathoner. Great job, Stacy. I mean, again, I could go on, and I'm going to miss people, and so I'm going to stop right now. But man, you guys really you did great, and I'm super proud of you. All of the first time marathon finishers, even the people I don't know. Great job if you went down to Little Rock and you knocked out your first full marathon, and what a race to do it in. Now I'm going to say this: that marathon course, that course was no joke, man. I honestly underestimated it. I really did. I underestimated that course. I underestimated the difficulty of it. I knew that my training had been El Garbaggio going into it, but wow, that was a humbling experience for yours truly. And you can see I'm rocking the shirt, so I definitely finished the race. But it is not going to go down as one of my finer performances, shall we say. As the Back of the Pack podcast guy, I judge myself in full marathons as 6 hours. Anything under 6 hours, I have succeeded in my task. Anything over 6 hours, I have kind of failed in my task, even though you do take some solace in finishing a marathon, of course. But I set my mark at 6 hours. I'm sorry, my glasses are sliding down my nose today. I don't know why. Maybe I lost weight from the marathon, and so now my glasses are slippery. We'll go with that. That's what we're gonna do. But anyway, I gauge success or failure for me at 6 hours for a full marathon. I did not make my 6 hours. I just barely missed it. Okay. So missed it by a few minutes, but in my world, that is deemed a failure. However, I'm throwing it out there. Training for a spring race is always difficult. We know that. All right. You never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you in the wintertime. And while I feel like we have had a very mild winter, because we are technically still in winter, I have my window open here at home and it's 77 degrees outside. So, like, Mother Nature's been all over the place. We've had the frozen tundra of Kansas City, and now we have darn near summertime weather. And it's just, for us, it's going to be up and down all week long. So, weather equals inconsistent training equals I should have tried harder to train in some areas where I didn't. But either which way, spring marathons can be difficult. I did not do what I should have done, and that race won. That race humbled me. It reminded me that training is important, and you cannot, under any circumstances, underestimate a full marathon. I can now say this is the second time I've done it. I'll tell you real quick the story of the first time. It was after my very first. I ran the Route 66 marathon in 2011, and then I was going to go do the New Orleans marathon in, I think it was actually 2013. So, like, well over a full year in between full marathons. And I remember thinking to myself, I've done a full marathon. I know how to do a full marathon. I'll be fine in New Orleans. And earmuffs, kids, I half-assed my training. New Orleans whooped me. New Orleans whooped me. You just can't half-ass train for a full marathon. Doesn't matter if it's an easy course, a difficult course. It doesn't matter. It'll get you if that's what you do. So to all of you who train correctly, well done. Congratulations. Again, I make the mistake so you don't have to. That's where we ended up. I did not make my 6-hour benchmark for myself. I was over it by 9 minutes. So I got to mark this one down as a marathon, but not the fault of Little Rock. Please don't read into that. They were great. So what I got to quit saying so. I've noticed this on my own podcast. I say so too much. So no kidding. All right. I exchanged it for all right. I told you guys I was going to be loopy today. I warned you. Let's do early on here what everyone wants us to do. The medals. Are the medals for Little Rock as cool as everyone will tell you they are, or that you may have heard? Again, we talk about medals on this show because we're all, earmuffs again, kids, we're all medal horrors. Me, first and foremost. So let's do this. I signed up for the challenge. So on Saturday, we ran the 5K. On Sunday, the full marathon. Let's do our 5K medal. And here it is if you're watching the screen. Okay, it's a nice medal. We've seen bigger, we've seen smaller, but it's got a little, what is this guy? He's a stegosaurus, little stegosaurus on the 5K medal. So it was not perfectly nice medal. I've certainly gotten smaller medals for a 5K. So their 5K medal is wonderful. Very nicely done. Because I did the challenge, I got a medal for the challenge. Let's do the challenge medal, okay? Roughly the same size. You can see here, now this is the little spitter dinosaur guy from Jurassic Park, the one we all remember from the very first movie. He's a big old yellow spitter guy, says challenge on it. So again, it's about the same size as the 5K, but pretty cool medal, okay? Now, let's do the full, okay? Yeah, hold on, I got to call in a crane to get this bad boy up. And here's the full. Yes, with Mr. T-Rex on it here, okay? So let me just do a little comparison here. Full challenge. You see that? You see that? There's a little bit of difference in size. And like I said, challenge medals and 5Ks, perfectly acceptable size. This is more than double tall, more than double wide, actually probably 3 times taller, 3 times wider. But that's where this is. And people remarked before about how I would make fun of the size of my own head. Now you can see it. This is bigger than my head. You see this? Are you guys checking this out? If you're watching the YouTube video, you better be looking and marveling at the size of this medal, which is actually making my arm tired holding it up like this. This is the Little Rock Marathon medal. It is every bit as big as they say it is. That's just what it is. So if you are ever considering a marathon and you really like medals, Little Rock is where you want to go. We've said it before, we'll say it again, and now I have perfectly demonstrated it. The size of this medal is just obscene. Now, let's roll down this weekend. It was a great weekend. Like I said, and I'm probably going to say it more. I rolled out of Kansas City early Thursday morning, okay? The people at the Little Rock Expo, or the Little Rock Marathon, were kind enough to give the Back of the Pack podcast a table at the Expo. Setup was Thursday, so I wanted to be down there and make sure I got everything set up. I left Kansas City early in the morning, cruised on down to Little Rock, 5.5-hour drive from where I was at, got to the Expo, lugged in all my stuff, set up the booth. Credit, if you saw the Expo and if you saw our booth, credit to Mrs. Back of the Pack podcast. The banner in the background and that tablecloth, and then all the stuff we had on the table, the little pamphlets, the stickers, the bracelets, all that stuff, that was all her. That was all her design. That was all her efforts. So again, credit to Mrs. Back of the Pack podcast for doing all that. We got set up, left out of there, grabbed some dinner, took the rest of the night off and chilled. Back at the Expo, 10 o'clock on Friday morning. Again, I had no idea what to expect. And whatever I expected, I had underestimated yet again. The amount of people who came strolling through the Expo was huge. The amount of people who came over to the table and talked to me was huge. And a huge thank you to everyone on Friday who came and spoke to me at the table. You guys, I really love doing this stuff. I love talking about the podcast. I love telling people about the podcast. And I love that we just stood around and talked about running. And that's what we do on this show it's like we said, it's runners talking running. So it was so cool that we were all talking about running, talking about races, first marathons, cool medals, cool races, good crowd experience. And again, we're getting people from all over the country. I've talked to people from New York. I talked to people from Florida, from Louisiana, from Oklahoma, There was some Kansas there. There was some Missouri there. There was definitely some Texas there, some Arkansas there. It was from all over. So I'm hearing about these awesome races that I had never even heard of before. People like, oh, you got to check out this race, or oh, you should really go look at that race. And I want to, trust me, I want to do them all because you guys were saying how great they were. But we met a ton of people on Friday. We even had over the course of the full weekend. And again, I blush when I say this. Hopefully you can't see it on the video. Two people who had heard of us previously who wanted to take pictures with me. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. Not that you want to take a picture with me because I have a face for radio, as they say, but just because you've heard of the show before. A lot of people actually came up and said, oh, I've heard of you. That is awesome. That is what makes me super happy that people have heard of the show, like the show, didn't immediately throw something at my head saying, oh my God, you suck. So it was really great. I said so again. We're going to make it a drinking game here pretty soon. But it was great meeting the people who had already heard of the show. And then, of course, my hope is that we have exposed a lot of people to the show. Okay, we met at the expo. I gave a little pamphlet, or you scanned one little barcodes. Maybe this is the first episode you're going to listen to, but I'm hoping that a lot of new people hear this episode and you can go out on Instagram and Facebook, our two main social media platforms, and you will follow or like or subscribe and be a part of our small but yet building community. For the new people, I know that there are other running Facebook pages. They basically kind of take care of themselves. Like everyone posts their stuff on that page. That's kind of what we want to do here. Like you don't have to wait for me to post something. If you want to post something, if you want to just say, hey, I did this race, or hey, I ran this time, and you want to get some love from our running community, you go ahead and post it on that Facebook page. You'll get the love from our running community. Because while we are the Back of the Pack podcast, we have listeners from the elite at the front all the way to the final finishers at the back, and we love everyone from start to finish. That is what we are about here, is just building up the strength of the running community, the love of the running community, and the positive feelings from the running community. That is what we do. So if this is your first episode and you met us at the expo, then I want to welcome you, and I thank you for checking out the Back of the Pack podcast. Saturday, we had to get up and be up at the expo a little earlier. Reason being, we had a 5K to run. So Saturday morning was the 5K for the Little Rock Marathon weekend. They ran the 5K and the 10K at the same time. I did the 5 as part of the challenge. Good race. I really didn't mind that race. When we started, there was some dense fog in the area, and it was still dark outside. So it was dark with dense fog. So like I couldn't even wear my sunglasses for most of the 5K. And I like wearing my sunglasses. It makes me feel like I'm kind of in another world and I can tune things out. Couldn't do that for the 5K. But I personally had decided I wanted to take the 5K at kind of marathon pace. I did not want to overdo it. I did not want to go out there and be like, I'm going to run a PR for the 5K the day before a full marathon. No, I wanted to get out there. I wanted to get loose and run a consistent pace for that race. So I think what I did, I think it was only like 3 seconds off in my splits. I think I did like a 12:05, a 12:08, and like a 12:06, something like that. So I was very consistent, very happy. Was it a PR? Absolutely not. Was it even a time that I would be thrilled with nowadays? No, it wasn't, but it's what I wanted to do for that 5K. So after the 5K was finished, I ran inside and I got immediately behind the table, ready to greet everyone as the expo opened on Saturday. Saturday, that would be the day, Saturday. Great day meeting people yet again. And again, I did eventually run to the restroom. I changed clothes. I got out of my sweaty 5K clothes. I took some dude wipes and gave myself a little wipe down in the restroom there so I wasn't stinky and gross, freshen up the deodorant, all that good stuff. I can talk about this. We're runners. We've talked about way worse. And so I worked the rest of the day. After the expo was over, and again, met a ton of new people, hopefully exposed a lot of new people to the show, and we're going to be getting a lot of new followers from all corners of the globe. I hope that happens. After the expo, when we were done, that was when it was time to go out to dinner with all the Kansas City running people who had come down. And again, it was a great dinner. We actually rented out a room at one of the local restaurants, Dugan's. You know, little love to you, Dugan's, whatever you call yourselves. I know I'm butchering your name and showing you love because I'm just difficult like that. Thank you for giving us your room. Thank you for our waitress, who was very lovely and enjoyed talking to us and put up with our nonsense. And then all of us for the Kansas City running team who had dinner together. That was a great time. We took a group picture. Once I start dumping everything out on social media, you will see our picture. All of us wearing our Scott Green t-shirts, which is what I wore the day of the Saturday Expo. Again, much love to Scott. We will be seeing you next weekend at your race. Again, if you're local to in and around Kansas City, the Beard Run on Sunday, March 10th. Sign up for it if you haven't already. All right, everyone needs to be there for the Beard Run. Okay, I'm just saying, we're all going to be there for Scott's 300th race. Everyone be at that run. The day before that, we all know, is the Westport St. Patrick's Day 4-miler. Following that race, because some people didn't know, is the Back of the Pack podcast 2-year anniversary. So we're going to have a little gathering at Kelly's Westport Inn after the Westport St. Patrick's Day 4-miler. That's Saturday the 9th. And then this show, might as well just tell you right now, this show right here for the Little Rock Marathon, this is Back of the Pack podcast number 100, our 100th episode. So super cool. If it hadn't fallen on such a big weekend, I would have done maybe like a best of show or something like that. But as it is, this was a big weekend. So we're just going to go and mention it and say, hey, that's really cool. And then we'll continue on with Little Rock. So with the 5K done, with the Expo done, then with dinner done, it was time to boogie on out of there. We got out of our dinner and everyone was back to their room because the next morning was the big morning. For those who didn't know, they'd made an executive decision either Wednesday or Thursday leading up to the race because of the projected forecast, the humidity and the heat that was coming for Little Rock. The start of the race was moved from 8 a.m. to 6 a.m. So everyone had a very early wake-up call when it came time for Sunday morning's marathon and half marathon. If you don't know this about Little Rock, and I know I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. Little Rock is one of the races that is well known for having a 2-hour head start for people who feel that they need more than 6 hours to complete a full marathon. Now, while I am a person who did my full marathon in 6:09, I was not one of the early starters because I always try and be around 6. No, this is for the people who are looking more like 6.5, 7, 7.5, or 8. And if you are one of those people, this race is made for you. So if you want to start thinking about next year, if you have desperately wanted to get that one full marathon, to be a part of that 1% of people who have completed a full marathon, look at Little Rock next year. Because if you got to take 7 hours or 7.5 or 8, okay, I can now tell you from experience, you can do it. And yes, there will be people there with you at the end. You are not going to be left on the course by yourself. There are people who are going to be out there with you. There are going to be people that make sure that you get to the finish line. And if you can do it in 8 hours, there will be someone with you, and they're not going to just abandon you out there. So Little Rock is awesome for this. It has allowed many people to be, first time and maybe just only time marathon finishers because you have that head start. So with the moving up of the start line from 8 a.m. to 6 a.m., the folks who wanted the early start, they started at 5:30. Okay, so they only got a 30-minute head start, but the time was extended on the back end. So they weren't going to get cut off. So at 5:30 a.m., again, I was there a few minutes before. I got to see my people in the purple wave. They take off at 5:30. Then we have a half hour for all of us to kind of get stretched out, lined up, and ready to go for our marathon. And right at 6 a.m., to Little Rock's credit, boom, we were gone. I was actually laughing a little bit because they did the opening prayer and the national anthem like 20 minutes before the race started. Like they were getting all that stuff out of the way so that when it was race time, it was race time. Credit to you for doing that. So 6 a.m. hits, boom, we go. There were thousands upon thousands of people out there, but it only took me about 5 minutes to get to the start line from Corral E, where I was at. I was in E, and so away we went. The course, a lot of it just kind of wraps around Little Rock at the beginning there, just going up and down some of the streets in downtown Little Rock. Little hilly. If you're a Kansas Cityan, nothing scary, nothing big, nothing bad. Till we go out, we go over a hill, and this is like right up, or not a hill, I'm sorry, a bridge. We go over the bridge, and this is kind of mile 1.5, 2, 1, somewhere in there. And we go down a nice hill. You do a little wrapping around on the other side of the river, and then you come back up and you go back over the bridge and you're back in downtown. Now, a lot of people were already starting to catch up with the purple wave when we were entering downtown right around the 5K mark. So thankfully, didn't look like there were any terrible collisions. The purple wave, they were kind of hanging to the right. The elite runners and such were able to go around on the left. Looked like everything worked out well. I know the purple runners probably did not want the elites coming up on them so fast. Like, it's like, hey, I just started this thing and you guys are already zooming around. But unfortunately, because of only the half hour head start, again, we had the time on the back end, but with only the half hour head start, that was going to happen. So we're going around some purple folks. I'm cruising along. My pace did not do what I wanted it to do. And I'm still not 100% sure why. I was running a good marathon pace during the 5K, but I could not find that groove for the full marathon. So my first mile, again, I was hoping for like 12:05. My first mile was like 12:38, something like that. And then right there, after that first one, I'm already getting in my own head. I'm like, wait, why am I not going as fast? What's this going to do to my finishing time? Do I need to speed up? And I never found my groove. I never did. It was really weird. I was consistent for the first half ish of the race, but I just never got into it. I never got that groove that runners can get into. I know our buddy Cody, he said he found a groove, at least for a period in time. I didn't get that groove. So it felt like it was kind of a fight for me, start to finish. But really, I was able to get through the first half because I'm kind of half marathon ready. Yeah, full marathon, clearly not so much, but I'm kind of half marathon ready right now, just in training and stamina and pace and whatnot. So doing the first half, you get to see some cool stuff. Hey, the volunteers and then the crowd support in Little Rock were great. They were all wonderful. There were plenty of stops, both official water stations and unofficial water stations. There were tons. Of course, there were mimosa stations, there were beers, there were shots, all that stuff. I did not do nearly as much as I did in Memphis, but that's because I was fighting it. I was fighting the race. And so I didn't want to stop for a whole bunch of extracurricular activity because I felt like I was already fighting myself. And if you're fighting yourself, you don't want to add in extra junk, shall we say. I definitely did do the run by offering when we went by the church. They had a run by offering where they had the bread and the wine, grape juice, and you could get a little bit of a blessing. Definitely did do that, and I told the gentleman in charge, I said, I need all the help I can get, and at that point, I did. So we get to the split. There were actually two splits. Got through the first split. They had the half marathoners around mile 6, maybe a little before that. They do this U-turn, but the full marathoners go around, and we just kind of do a longer 2-mile loop, and then we catch up with the back of the half marathoners. That was a little weird because you're, however long it takes you to do 2 miles, let's just say 16 minutes, for lack of a better, actually for me, that's definitely not at all true. However long it takes you to do 2 miles, when you come back around, you're slamming into the back of now slower half marathoners, a lot of walkers at that point. So I had to do a little weaving in and out. And again, I'm already fighting it. I'm fighting my pace. I'm fighting everything else. Now I'm weaving through all the walkers and kind of in the back. It's fine. And again, glad you guys are out there. It just was interesting to me to have to do that. There's been some races we've had to do that, but so I'm going. I got to catch up with some of my friends in the purple wave. So I made sure everyone was cool. Everyone was doing great, probably better than I was at that point, and continued on. We got to the second split, and so that's where the half marathoners, they were about finished. They're ready to go. Us full marathoners straight ahead to continue to explore the sights and sounds of Little Rock, Arkansas. We got to go up to the Capitol, and everyone who did the race knows where I'm going with this one. We went up to the Capitol, and that was cool. And you're going to see a video I took of a Jamaican guy playing steel drums, which is one of my favorite things. I think steel drum, Jamaican sound is one of the coolest music types ever. Recorded him. You can see the state capitol behind. That was really cool. We go down this little hill, and then we see it. The mile 15 uphill. And I mean, like, straight up, man. It was giant. This was easily the worst hill on the course. It was the most difficult part of the course. It was long, and it was steep, and it was painful. And if you said at any point of that, that's what she said, you're not wrong. But that hill was gnarly. There was an aid station halfway up it. And I said jokingly to a lady, I said, who brought all these hills? And she's like, oh, we just brought it in for the race. I'm like, man, you guys get it out of here. I don't want this hill anymore. Finally got to the top of it, but you know how it is when you go up a hill, like it's hard for your body to kind of get back in its groove. And I was already fighting groove. I was fighting pacing and groove and all of it. So that hill did me no favors. Went down the other side of it, which was not nearly as pleasant as going up it. Jeez, words are fun. I told you I'm goofy today. And then we just did a lot of winding around. Did some streets through some nice neighborhoods. Got to go through this nice tree-lined course. I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite cheer stations. I don't know where we were. I want to say somewhere around mile 17 or 18. And like tree-lined course. It's like we're going through a park, but it's a road, just probably not one that's used very often. And I see this group up there, and it's a group of people there. I'm going to say they're older than me. I'm not even going to guess their age, but they've got me by probably quite a few years. And they're just standing there, and they're looking very solemn. And I'm running up to them like, weird. Okay, I guess we're gonna, I'll give them a friendly little smile. So right when I get up to them, in unison, they all go and scream and yell. They were having fun with it. And so they were, and then they did it to the person behind me too. Like the next person comes along, they get real quiet, real quiet. They get right even with them, and then they blow up. It cracked me up because it got me thinking in the moment. I was like, what's wrong with these people? Am I doing something wrong? Like, and so that got in my head because everything was getting in my head at that point. But that was really cool. They were really funny. And then we got a great downhill there. We came out of the park and we took this left. Now, taking the left after mile 18, I know we're getting close to mile 19. Really? Because 18 comes after, or 19 comes after 18? Yeah, I'm aware. Okay. I'm not doing math, I promise. But the rule was if you were a yellow bibbed person, which was the full marathoners who did not have the head start, you had to be past mile 19 in front of the balloon people. And they were allegedly the 6-hour pacers. We'll come back to them in a minute. But you had to be in front of them by mile 19. Okay, well, here's mile 19 coming up. They are nowhere to be seen. They're not behind me, so I know I'm doing okay. For the longest time, I had the 545s in front of me, and I made a mistake. I made a mistake a little bit after that hill, if I can backtrack a little bit. There's a lot of twists and turns, so you lose sight of people. I lost sight of the 545s for a while, but then I eventually made a turn and I saw pacer shirts in front of me, and I thought, oh, there they are. Cool, man. I'm hanging in with them better than I thought I would. And I finally catch up to these people. I'm like, oh, this doesn't seem right. How am I catching up to them? Because I know I'm not running a 545. It was a pace group for one of the purple bibs. So like they were like the 7.5 or 7. I think they were the 7-hour pace group. And so I caught up to them thinking they were the 545s. Like, oh, okay, so I'm not nearly in as much good shape as I thought I was. So I was like, okay, I better keep going. But anyway, I get to mile 19. The balloon people are nowhere in sight. We go into this kind of park. It's an out and back in a park that is probably 4 miles. And I'm just trucking along and I'm doing my thing. And I finally get to the turnaround there and I'm trucking along and I'm coming back. As I'm coming back, I see 2 of my purple people eaters. No, I see them. I walk over and make sure they're doing good. I check on them. They're doing great. And out I go. I make it out. Now I'm at like mile marker 23. And I finally saw balloon people. The thing is, at mile marker 23, after you had beaten them to mile marker 19, they cut the balloons off themselves and they were running. They were just going now. So thankfully I didn't have to worry about them anymore. I had beat the cutoff. But apparently some people, I guess, did actually have to get diverted from what I was told. I could be wrong because of time limit. No, I get that, but thankfully not an issue for me. But if you do Little Rock, understand you have to beat the balloons by mile 19. I actually wanted to make it to like 2021 just to be safe without seeing them anywhere near me. Fortunately, I was able to do all that. After I got out of the park on that long turnaround, again, we're talking mile marker 23, coming up to 24, the clouds broke. And again, I had talked about the weather. They had moved it up because of weather, just because of the potential for the heat and humidity. Look, that humidity was no joke from moment one, from crossing the start line. You could have wrung my shirt out by mile 2. Now, thankfully, I had no dehydration issues. I mean, I was drinking at every official aid station and every unofficial aid station. I never stopped sweating. So hydration was not my concern. The concern, though, was at mile 24 when the clouds broke and that sun came out, because then I had sunshine and humidity. And that, man, I'll tell you, that just drained it right out of me. And again, I know I've got 2 miles left, but at that point, I was struggling. I was struggling something fierce, like I wasn't already, but now it was getting even worse. But thankfully, I'm trucking along. Mile 24 gets to mile 25. Right before mile 25, though, there was kind of a big cheer station there going up a little bit of a hill. And look, there's a lot of train track issues in Little Rock, okay? So they have a little train that goes around downtown, then a lot of train yards, I'm sure, tracks in use, tracks not in use, whatever the case might be. Going up this little hill right before mile 25, I stepped over a train track but came down on it awkwardly, and my right knee just popped. And it hurt like a son of a gun. Like, man, you got to be kidding me. With this little left, this is what happens. Jeez. But we play through the pain. It's not like everything wasn't already hurting on me anyway. We make the left out of there, heading down a hill, get to mile marker 25. Right after mile marker 25 is the last and second worst hill. So I'm going up the hill. I come in contact with another runner there. I say something smart alecky about this hill. She responds, and she knew who I was. And she's from Minnesota. And we talked going all the way up that hill. She's a listener of the podcast. So huge shout out and love there. It was great to just have that talking distraction getting up that darn hill. And because she kind of knew what we did here on the Back of the Pack podcast, we had something to talk about, and that was awesome. So really helped kind of get that knee pain out of my head and to get to the top of that hill. After that, we just kind of had some downhill mostly and then some rolling hills to the finish line. We crossed the finish line. The Kansas City peeps were loud and proud. And again, love you guys. Thank you all so very much. Cross the finish line, and you don't just turn around and go talk to people. They have this whole finisher chute that goes inside the convention center, which is great. It's nice to get out of that heat. And so you go inside, they give you your medal, they take a picture, food, drink, other photo opportunities, medical tent. They make sure you're okay, but you take care of all of this and kind of go through the corral before you're sent out into the bulk where the big convention center where the expo was. Now it's all set up with chairs and tables. Went in there, saw a lot of the KC peeps who were at a table. And so that is kind of when the race officially ended. Now, the medals are huge. I just showed you. The experience was great. After I finished, we had a little bit longer. And again, we were on the tracking devices watching our other Kansas City people as they were getting closer. So we all went back out to the finish line. We cheered them on. We cheered a lot of other people on who were kind of finishing around the same time. It was awesome, again, for me to be there, just able to sit on this nice concrete block and cheer on all the people who are coming in. Because again, I finished at 6:09. Let's say I got outside to cheer people on at 6:20, 6:25. We were out there until the 8-hour Pacers crossed. The official last people, once they crossed, that's when we left. But we were out there cheering everyone on coming in at that point, and that meant a lot. Man, it's so cool, again, to see both the people I know and the people I don't. You can just kind of tell who that first time marathoner is, or that person who was riding that struggle bus since moment one, but they persevered, they stayed with it, they fought through it, and they're finishing a marathon. It really is one of the coolest experiences. And I know a lot gets made and a lot gets said, and Runner's World is doing a story about it. They keep reposting about the importance of the people who stay and cheer for the Back of the Packers. Well, no duh. We've been talking about that kind of support for 2 years now on the Back of the Pack podcast. 2 years next week, 100 episodes this week. So it's nothing new to us. But the people who do this, much love and much kudos for those who will stay and cheer until that last person comes across the finish line. It is really a cool experience when you see the people who, again, went through it to make it to where they are. So that is the Little Rock experience. Afterwards, we all went out. We had one more dinner for those who remained in town one more night. Might have had a few adult beverages to help ease the pain. Definitely did. And then it was bedtime, up early this morning, and now I'm back here in the podcast studio bringing you this episode. So that will do it for this. Now, I am going to attach here at the very end some of the videos I took along the course. So if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're watching, you are, of course, more than welcome to tune in. I tried to talk a little more on these than I did in Vegas so that it's not just weird background noise for anyone who's listening on Spotify or iTunes or whatever. I tried to talk more because I know you can't see. Maybe I was perfect, maybe I wasn't. I don't even remember at this point because I was dying for a lot of these videos. But that's going to do it for this episode. Stay tuned now for the videos I took along the Little Rock course. I hope you enjoyed those. Remember that Saturday is the Westport St. Patrick's Day 4-miler. I will be at that, running that race slowly. And then we have the Back of the Pack podcast 2-year anniversary at Kelly's Inn in Westport. The moment you cross the finish line and you get your medal, head into Kelly's. Because as soon as I get there, whenever I finish, the party begins. You guys can start the party without me. You don't need me. Shoot. Just go in there and order a drink. Order me one too. And then the day after that is the beard run. I'll be doing the 10K. Silly enough. Or if I don't run the race, I'm still going to be there. All depends on how my knees feel at that point. But the beard run on March 10th. And then we continue on from there. And we're almost into Heartland 39.3 series season and everything else that we've got coming up. So again, from the very bottom or back of the no, from the very bottom of my heart, thank you all so much that I met down in Little Rock, Arkansas for such a great weekend. To the race organizers, volunteers, directors, and everyone associated with the Little Rock Marathon, this was top notch, first class, and I want to thank you guys very much for a wonderful experience throughout the entire weekend. To everyone we met, it was a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to our little community. I hope you enjoy it. Feedback is always welcome. If it's bad, send it to Cody. If it's good, give it to me. And other than that, we'll see you guys next week. Hey, everybody. Here we are. We're at the Back of the Pack podcast booth here in Little Rock. So this is what it looks like. Just got here. We're going to be right next to the Volkswagen dealership. So make sure you swing by and check us out. However, this will not do. So I'm going to get to work. We'll see what this looks like here in a little bit. Now there we go, much better. We've now got the banner up. Let's take a look here. Check it. Here is our sweet table. Oh yeah. Big shout out to our friends at the Top City Half Marathon for joining us on this little adventure. But here we go, it is all ready. So we'll see you guys starting tomorrow. Hey everybody, we are finally done. We are finished with the Little Rock Expo. There is nothing left to do now but run a marathon in the morning. But for anyone who catches this on TikTok or Instagram or wherever else I might post it, I want to say a huge thank you to the folks of Little Rock and everyone who came out to the Expo. We made a ton of new friends and we had a really good time here. I can't form words right now because I've been standing for 16 hours over the last 2 days and we've talked to a lot of people. But to everyone who joined us here in Little Rock, thank you all so very much. Now we're going to run a race. We're going to go home. That drive back to Kansas City on Monday is going to be a long one, and I'm going to be a little tired, but that's all right. We will get a new episode out Monday evening, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and it'll be all about the Little Rock Marathon. So here, just give you a little spin around there. There we go. See, it's starting to empty out in here. This thing is about done. So everyone at home, take care. Everyone we met in Little Rock, thank you so much. Now let's go do a marathon. Hey everybody, we are just past mile 14 of the Little Rock Marathon. I apologize, I have been terrible at videoing things, vlogging, if you will. But as you can see, they said it was gonna be really hot. It's not really hot, but it is super humid. So very sweaty. Didn't even go with the headpiece today because I was really afraid of the heat being trapped on my head. There's fog out here, but we expect it's gonna burn off. And so, again, we're already past halfway, which is good. But if this burns off, it's going to be a miserable second half of this race. So we'll be back here in a little bit as I about to get a nice downhill. So I'm going to take advantage of that. But I wanted to bring you the Jamaican drums and then touch base for the episode. But we'll be back here in a little while. So thanks for sticking with us here in Little Rock. As you can see the Capitol right over my shoulder there. Pretty cool, right? We'll be back in a little bit. Okay, back again real quick, everyone. And I'm sorry for the traffic noise. See if you can see behind me. I am on the biggest freaking hill I think I've ever done in a marathon, except for the Baton Memorial Death March, which was up a mountain. But good God, man, we just keep going up, and I'm not even to the top yet. I see the top, I ain't to it. So Little Rock, the people at the aid station said you guys brought this in for the race. I appreciate it, but you didn't have to do that. So anyway, we're about to crest Everest here, and then we're going to continue on to mile marker 15. So we'll be back. All right, everyone, in the background there is mile 20. Mile marker 20 now in the rearview mirror. So we got people heading back towards the finish line going behind me. I'm still heading out on this little 3 mile out and back. So the humidity is big. We got to be at 90+% humidity down here. Thankfully, still cloudy. With only a 10K left. We're still cloudy, so thank goodness for small favors, right? But can tell training not good, hasn't been good. Knew it was going to be bad. Doing okay though, not great. The Little Rock Marathon's been super fun. The crowd support is very good, and that's something we always want to mention. If I don't mention that in studio, let me mention it here on this little live bit. The crowd support for Little Rock is very, very good. So Been a lot of aid stations, and not just official aid stations, but neighborhood made aid stations with drinks and maybe a few adult beverages. Not doing nearly what I did in Memphis though, not doing that. But anyway, all right, so we got a 10K left, and keeping an eye out. The people going back the other way, we should see some more of our people. Just past Terry a few minutes ago, should see Cody and Stacy at some point in time. So shout out to you guys, you're all crushing it. Of all the Kansas City people, I am the back of the pack for sure. So anyway, we are going to keep going, and we'll be back a little later when I feel like taking a break. And hello again, everyone. I don't know if you can see it, but in the background there, that's mile marker 24. So 24 miles in the book, so we've only got 2 left. Slowly heading to the finish line. This race has gone from bad to worse for yours truly. I'm hurting big time. So, based on time, I'm gonna be over 6 hours. Boo. But a lot of leg pain. So, oh well, we're gonna get her done. See you at the finish line. All right, everyone, you can hear the finish line coming. Here we are. Mile marker 26. Hooray, mile marker 26. All right. We'll be heading down the stretch in a second. Be ready. Appreciate you. There you go, y'all. Little Rock is done. Going nowhere near the PR bell, because that would be wrong. Thank you all so much.